Recently, I made a video covering why Dispatch has understood what makes superheroes so popular and enduring better than 99% of what we're getting out of them in the modern day, and how by doing so, it unexpectedly reinvigorated interest in the genre again, while most Marvel and DC adaptations have been actively turning potential fans away. One of the main reasons I covered was that Dispatch portrays superheroes as crime fighters first and foremost again. And while I got a lot of comments agreeing with me, or discussing the nuances of the point, there were a lot of people claiming that I was straight up wrong, with their arguments against the very idea that superheroes are supposed to fight crime being usually a variation of the following. Most superheroes have more important things to do than deal with regular crime. Dealing with street-level crime is only for street-level heroes like Spider-Man, Daredevil, or Batman. Or, watching superheroes fight crime all the time would be boring. Or, committing crime is seen as a byproduct of your socio-economic class in the modern day. Having superheroes beat up poor people could be seen as problematic. And of course, shut the fuck up, idiot! You don't know what the fuck you're talking about! Fuck you! End your video! Ah! So, I thought this would be a good opportunity to go through these ideas and explain why, even though they're apparently relatively popular opinions, they're just logically wrong. But more important than arguing with any specific person or even a cultural consensus, I am arguing with the parts of these ideas that have bled into actual superhero comics, movies, and games, and have contributed to plunging the medium out of popularity and turned many potential fans away. So, let's start out with the one I saw the most, while also being the most frustrating to hear because while the other ones are at least opinions, this one is just factually wrong. That being, Superman and the Avengers have more important things to do than deal with regular crime. Street-level crimes are really only for street-level heroes like Spider-Man, Batman, and Daredevil. And this is wrong. For so many reasons. Firstly, yes, Spidey, Batman, and Daredevil do fight a lot of street crime, specifically in the movies and shows. They're some of the few characters who are most likely to be shown doing so. But they also fight all kinds of other crazy shit. Spider-Man fights a mutated scientist trying to turn the world into reptiles, a living vampire, a mad scientist obsessed with cloning people, alien symbiotes, out-of-control robots, multiversal borderline cannibals, and many other insane, very much non-street-level threats. Batman fights a mad monster-making scientist, a mutated bat monster, a femme fatale eco-terrorist who can control plants, the immortal leader of an assassin cult, a crazed psychologist obsessed with plunging the world into utter fear, an ancient monster from the dark multiverse, a giant zombie, and many even crazier threats. And these are just when they're on their own, not even counting the even crazier crap they face alongside other heroes on the Avengers or Justice League. And half of the time you look at Daredevil, he's fighting frickin' ninjas, man. And though all of these heroes do fight a lot of so-called street-level crime, the majority of those criminals wear costumes while committing their crimes. And just about every hero has a rogues gallery, with the vast majority of their villains usually more interested in committing crime than controlling or destroying the world, as we keep seeing in modern movies and stuff. The Flash is one of the most powerful heroes on the entire planet. He is the antithesis of street-level, yet the vast majority of his major villains are just regular criminals who happen to wear a costume and have some power or gimmick. Sure, he fights incredibly dangerous threats like Gorilla Grodd or Reverse Flash, but the various Flashes have also fought Captain Cold, Heatwave, Mirror Master, Weather Wizard, Captain Boomerang, Trickster, Abracadabra, Folded Man, Tar Pit, Girder, The Shade, Ragdoll, Thinker, Turtle, Fiddler, and many more criminals of Central and Keystone City. Sure, Superman fights world-ending threats like General Zod, Doomsday, and Brainiac, but he also fights Metallo, Parasite, Silver Banshee, Toyman, Livewire, and Prankster, all of whom have tried to kill Superman or other citizens of Metropolis, robbed banks, or stolen technology for themselves or for whoever is paying for them, or caused damage to public or personal property. Crimes. Thor is one of the biggest examples I kept seeing of a hero who is too busy fighting cosmic and godlike threats to intervene in crimes. And yes, he does fight a lot of that stuff, but I find this example to be a strange one, since one of his most well-known villains is the Wrecking Crew, who are basically just a group of 4 criminals imbued with godlike powers. The X-Men are another example often given, but many of their villains were just criminals who happen to have mutant powers like Vanisher or Black Tom Cassidy. Fantastic Four, I keep seeing people see, oh, they're more of explorers, and they do explore, and that's awesome, and they find a lot of threats while doing so, but they also fight threats like the Wizard, Pot Paste Pete, or Mad Thinker. The idea that certain heroes only have certain types of villains is mostly a product of the movies, and one of the reasons people are starting to grow bored of them. We've basically been watching these characters fight the same reskinned I'm gonna take over or destroy the world villains over and over in a rehash of the same plot again and again. When I say superheroes are supposed to fight crime, I don't mean just guys in ski masks holding up a convenience store. I mean supervillains. There's this idea in modern pop culture that supervillain equals world conqueror or genocidal maniac, but that's completely wrong. It's just the antithesis of a superhero. If a superhero uses their power to dedicate their lives to selflessly protecting others, a supervillain uses their power to selfishly benefit themselves at the expense of others. And oftentimes, this takes the form, like it does in real life, of crime. Stealing shit, killing or hurting people, violently lashing out in public for attention. And because modern superheroes, even in comics, are so focused on creating the biggest, most high-stakes stories ever, we're being denied a lot of the best comic book characters. How in the hell did they make a Flash movie and not use the Rogues? It's because they think a group of villains pulling off a heist is too boring for the Flash to fight. No, he needs to fight some time-traveling evil version of himself. How can they make a Suicide Squad movie and claim there's all these super-powered costume criminals out there, yet in every other movie show us a world where our heroes never deal with public threats like this? It's the same reason. They don't want to take the time to set these kind of characters up. Now, there's another similar comment I kept getting that not every superhero should fight crime. Some, like Doctor Strange, are focused specifically on protecting the realm from magical threats. And to that comment, I say, you're absolutely correct. Not every hero should fight crime. That would be equally boring. However, the majority of them should, at least to some extent. A superhero world is a world where, for whatever reason, various people have powers or special abilities. And when there are so many people with powers, it's inevitable that a great deal of them will use those powers to easily break the law, such as stealing or hurting others for personal gain. And since there are so many people like this, it's basically necessary to have so many superheroes to counter this so they don't overrun the world. Because without all these supervillains and supercriminals, why in the hell are there so many superheroes wandering around anyways? And what are they doing with their time? Moving on to the next major criticism I've been seeing, watching superheroes fight crime all the time would be boring as hell. And with this, I absolutely agree. If I go to a Thor movie and have to spend 2 hours watching him deal with a couple bank robbers, I'm gonna be pissed and bored as hell, even if those bank robbers were the Wrecking Crew. And that goes for all the previous heroes I listed. However, in the current MCU, Thor is basically just a super strong guy who gets pissed off sometimes and flies in to beat the crap out of somebody. He's not a superhero. And he's definitely not a hero of Midgard, as he's almost always focused on cosmic or Asgardian threats. But if you show just one scene where he's flying over the city and sees someone shooting up a bank, then flies down to easily deal with it, suddenly that all changes. One scene, and Thor is no longer some selfish buff dude protecting his own people and constantly trying to get revenge. He's a superhero who will take some time out of his busy day to help puny little mortals when he can. God knows Love and Thunder and Dark World had the spare friggin' time to put a scene like that in, as half those plots were just filler anyways. Modern-style superheroes come off as gods from above, too important and busy to come down and trifle within the filth us common mortals live in. You show one scene where a superhero stops a purse snatcher or bank robber, costumed or not, and you show that they at least care about the common man. The Raimi Spider-Man movies used to do a very good job of this. We'd get a quick little montage of Spider-Man stopping various crimes that would not interrupt the plot at all. But it would show us that he's a good guy, a hero who cares deeply about people, no matter how small their problems. That's something that's sorely lacking from modern heroes in the wider pop culture. And as I said before, it's one of the reasons people seem to believe Spider-Man should care enough about people to stop criminals, but think it would be asinine for the Avengers to care what the hell's happening on the streets of New York. The Avengers in the movies are a group that pretty much only comes together when there's a world-ending threat they need to deal with. But that's not how they've always been portrayed in the comics. Yes, if there's a world-ending threat, they'll be there in a second and they will deal with it. But if the Serpent Society is robbing a bank down the street, they're not going to just sit around and let the cops deal with it. They're going to send some members out to stop them and save people. But because they never fight crime in the movies, the MCU Avengers are not superheroes. And you want to talk about what's boring? Look at the majority of modern superhero media. Movies like the Marvel's Flash, Love and Thunder, and Quantumania are convoluted, unfocused messes. And so many modern comics are just like 20 pages of people talking about nothing, or us following some boring-ass slice-of-life story that would never get greenlit without hijacking a superhero, or just straight-up lectures about some issue that has nothing to do with these characters and I don't give a crap about. These are supposed to be stories about superheroes. Making the heart of the story fighting crime and protecting the innocent keeps things focused and on track. Within that framework, you can do just about any story anyways, whether a relationship soap opera or some metaphorical lecture. I don't care. Keeping it focused on heroes and villains will keep it interesting no matter what. Even on the crappiest of writing, if a hero jumps in and punches a guy, it is at the very least exciting. And keeping it focused on heroes dealing with crime keeps things grounded here in the real world. One of the major problems people have with the ever-growing stakes of the Earth, universe, multiverse, omniverse is just about to explode and the heroes need to go stop it, specifically that we've been seeing in the movies, is that it takes the heroes out of the regular world and makes them distant and unrelatable. But if they keep returning from their crazy multiversal space adventures to stopping things that happen in the real world, like someone stealing a car, kidnapping somebody, or robbing a bank, they'll remain with at least 1 foot in our world. That's the magic of superheroes. It's not the powers, it's not the costumes, it's those things existing in our mundane world. And that's something the pop culture's conception of superheroes, specifically in the movies, have almost entirely lost. You're supposed to be able to imagine that you could look up and see Captain America or Superman flying by. But in these kind of plots, it's hard to imagine yourself in all of these crazy nonsensical green screened areas anyways. And now, here's the one that drives me the most nuts to hear and makes the least sense as to why superheroes specifically should not be fighting crime anymore. Committing crime is seen as being a byproduct of your socioeconomic class in the modern day. Having superheroes beat up poor people could be seen as problematic. This is one of the most common criticisms of superheroes nowadays, so prevalent in the genre that even dipshit writers have parroted it in official works from Marvel and DC. Most recently and pathetically in Flash, when Batman says that if he really cared about crime, he would focus his resources on helping the underlying social problems that lead to it, instead of just beating up criminals, out of Batman's own friggin' mouth with a lasso of truth on him, which will drive every fan of Batman nuts, because there are countless examples of him doing exactly that in comics. Whether it's by investing in fixing up the lower income parts of the city everyone's neglected, funding programs that rehabilitate criminals and help them integrate back into society, or using his Bruce Wayne persona to convince the other elites of Gotham to use their resources to do the same. The people who argue crime is committed by the poor, so Batman and Flash shouldn't deal with it, those are people who I'm going to assume have never been truly poor. Because if they had, they'd know that most crime is also committed against the poor. To people saying this, you know what neighborhood Batman isn't patrolling? Yours, because it's just fine and safe. The places Batman patrols are the seediest, most dangerous, and crime-infested areas in Gotham. And I guarantee Batman doesn't give a shit how poor or rich the people committing crimes there are, or how poor or rich the victims of those crimes are. He'll save them either friggin' way. Because if some guy's got a gun at me and my family, and Batman jumps in and punches him, and I'm not going to be like, whoa, Batman, we don't know what brought him to that. For all we know, this dude has had a hard life, and it's not his fault he shoved a gun in my mouth. Come on, man. And the next critique I have of this nonsense is that, yeah, plenty of crimes are committed by the poor and desperate. And if you want to read a story exploring how these more nuanced problems could be dealt with within these fantastical worlds, go for it. Sounds interesting. But I don't think anyone is saying that they want to watch Batman jump down and beat the shit out of a widowed mother who works 2 jobs and still can't afford rent as she steals a friggin' banana to stop her 5-year-old from starving to death. We're talking about murderers, rapists, muggers, psychos, junkies, serial killers, gangsters. Real crimes, man. But we're also talking about fake crimes. Sure, in real life, there are plenty of bank robbers. Some who endanger the innocent by involving guns and taking hostages. But in a superhero world, they're often using an ice gun or ripping the bank vault off of its hinges with their super strength. You don't need to do anything as dull and literal as real life does. If writers do these things right, we never even need to have a conversation about how to deal with crime in the real world. Captain Boomerang and Prankster aren't really reflective of the real world. Because here's the most important thing I absolutely hate about this argument I keep hearing. This shit isn't real, man. Yes, superheroes can represent the real world quite often. Civil War was a conversation on gun control. Winter Soldier was about worries about the rising security state. Superman was very blatantly about contemporary overseas conflicts. And if you're interested in these issues, you can watch these movies and think about them. But if you're not, you can completely ignore them or not even notice and just enjoy the fantastical action movie. That's the beauty of this genre. It can be so many different things to so many different people. People always call them escapism, and some of them are, but they're a unique blend of escapism and metaphor. When people come in and limit them due to some real-world opinions they have, it makes the whole thing so damn boring. Because these kinds of people are so literal, they're not creative enough to structure their opinions in the form of a superhero story, which is what we're all here for. But lastly, this is the kind of thinking that has been mixing morality up so much in recent superheroes that they've just become almost unwatchable sometimes. Ironheart being the best example. All across the series, Riri commits crime after crime, specifically justifying being poor as her excuse for doing so. Any superhero fan watching this expected her to learn her lesson or face justice. But she doesn't. The show just ends with her ruining multiple lives around her, never coming to terms with the inner trauma causing her to live such a selfish, careless life, and then she makes a deal with the literal devil at the end because she has no concept of good and evil. And this is not portrayed as an interesting exploration of what happens when someone has no moral compass or clarity. It's portrayed as just nothing specific, just some stuff that happened. The writers just thought it would be an interesting story, so that's what the story was. Superheroes are the story of good versus evil at their core. When you start justifying evil actions, you also start questioning good actions, as we see in Ironheart as Riri keeps tearing down Tony Stark multiple times in weird little passive-aggressive comments and speeches that heavily imply he's not a hero, despite having saved the world. The Marvels had an interesting question about good and evil inside of it, through Carol's actions destroying the Supreme Intelligence and leading the Kree to lash out in desperation as their planet suffered for it. What was right, what was wrong here? But because there's no clear morality in this story, we just watch random shit happen for a while and then Carol reignites the Kree sun. No moral, no idea, no lesson whatsoever. You just wasted your time, man. This isn't something the early MCU had. There were clear heroes and villains representing the good and evil in humanity, putting them against each other. And this is part of why it became so popular, because that's what superheroes are. This vague, unspecified crap where you can never talk about anything and never show anyone stating any strong opinion about anything is just the boringest crap ever. This topsy-turvy crime isn't evil and stopping crime isn't good mentality is killing the genre. Yes, there's nuance in everything, and you can explore that by showing supervillains with noble traits who are really just victims of circumstances making bad choices, and superheroes with toxic traits who are secretly narcissists seeking fame or glory. But you can't toss the entire morality system superheroes have followed since their inception and expect that this genre that has been popular since 1938 will just keep making money now without such a core aspect of it. That's just friggin' stupid. And of course, the last argument I keep saying, shut the fuck up, idiot. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Fuck you and your video. To which I'll very kindly reply, I actually do know what I'm talking about. I know more about superheroes than you know about your own pathetic, wasted little life. Go back to jerking off to raccoon girls. The adults are frickin' talking. Bah! Anyways, this is my long-winded way of further explaining that I was glad in Dispatch when Mecha Man with a broken arm stepped in and stopped those skittle-masked guys from looting TVs, as it's what a superhero would do, and I was very surprised to see it because superheroes are friggin' awesome and they've been missing for a long time in pop culture. Anywho, that's all for today. I am friggin' tired. Subscribe and all that shit. If you still disagree, I'd love to read your reasons why. I appreciate conversation, even heated, heavily disagreeing conversation. Watch a video or whatever, I gotta fucking go. See ya!